a most special guest today. I am here with Naomi Stripper, who wrote an amazing book, and we're going to talk all about it, and that's why you're here today. Please say hello, Naomi.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so happy. Full transparency, I don't know how I found your book, but as I was reading it, I'm definitely asking her to be on the podcast. And I went into like full strategy mode and found you on social media and was like, let me just send a cute little message first to kind of like see how your vibe was and if you would be like communicative, and you were just wonderful. And so I'm so grateful that my plan worked and that you're here with me today. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm really grateful too. I was so excited actually, and I started like looking into you and I was like, wow, this is super cool. And I didn't know to the extent like who you were, but I was like, this
Oh,
sounds really great.
oh.
So it's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing this work for a long time, but so have you. You've been a stripper or you were a stripper for how long?
20 years.
Right. And you also did full service sex work during your stripping career, right?
I did.
Yeah,
Yes.
great. But you're also Amish,
Yes. I grew up Amish.
right?
Yes.
The title of your book, The Amazing Adventures of an Amish Stripper, and your adventures were absolutely amazing. What like sort of inspired you to write the book?
Well, when I would talk to people, a lot of people would tell me, "Oh, you need to write a book." After they got to know me and they found out I was Amish, a stripper, and a sex worker. I didn't always enclose that I was a sex worker because I always felt kind of private about that.
Hmm.
But I tried often to write a book, and I always ended up getting stuck. And I even wrote pencil and paper and
Yeah.
tried to type, and it just didn't work. And then I met my friends, a couple in Vegas, and they had published and written, I don't know, quite a few books. So they told me they would help me and they ran through the steps how I could do it. And that's how I was finally successful at doing it. But it took me 11 years to write it until I got it
Wow.
published.
Yeah, but I
I'm
mean,
grateful.
the timing's kind of great because the book goes up until like the pandemic. So that was only 4 years ago. So if you had written it 7 years ago, there would have been so many adventures left out. Like the final ending
Exactly.
is like so important to the book. You have an ending, like this success story at the end. And it's so powerful. So I'm glad it took you that long.
I am too. And I always kind of felt along the way, like I was like, I always felt like there needed to be more in the end
Mm,
because I felt like there was this unsettled part of
right.
me that wasn't like I wasn't happy or it
Sure.
wasn't going to have a good ending. But I'm grateful how it turned out.
So grateful. It was so entertaining. One night, I told you I read the book in like 2, maybe 3 days. I just was like waking up and just reading it like as much as I
That's
could throughout the
awesome.
day. And at one point, I had like a lasagna in the oven, which takes like 40 minutes to bake. And I told my husband, I'm like, let me read a chapter to you. Because it was like family time, but like I was obsessed. And so I read the chapter to him, and he was like laughing, he was intrigued, he was interested. So he really enjoyed the chapter as well, what I did read to him. So I mean, I think this
Awesome.
book is for everyone except for maybe children. But
For kids.
yeah. But yeah, and one of the reviews, because I left a review on Amazon for you, and one of the reviews said like they were kind of criticizing the book for being too pornographic. And my response to that comment in my head was like, yeah, it is porn. It's hot. Like I was totally into it. So good job. Thank you for
Thank
titillating
you.
us. Yes.
We got another one recently. It says that they couldn't even finish the book. It was girl meets guy. We did this and that, and it was too repetitive. I couldn't even finish the book. But I have to remember it's not for everyone. Like,
Right.
and it was my experience, and it's my life story, and it's just
Yes.
how it happened. And any review is better than no review, I guess. So it's all
Yes.
good.
Yes. Well, let's give our audience a little bit of background on you. So you grew up Amish, and then you left your home, right? Can you give us like
I
a brief description of what that was like, your beginning years?
Yes, I grew up Swartzen Trooper Amish, which is the strictest Amish, one of the strictest Amish communities, and that was very, very strict. Like we had to wear long dresses down to our ankles, only dark colors, and we couldn't roll our sleeves up past our elbows. We had to wear bonnets. Our hair had to be all covered. It was very, very strict how we dressed. We gardened and cooked and cleaned. We made all of our own clothing, even for the men. And I grew up on a farm. So at a very young age, I was up at 5 in the morning feeding the chickens. And at 8, I was milking cows. We had 20 cows, sometimes more than 20 cows that we milked by hand twice a day. And there wasn't much time for play. But, I really enjoyed my childhood. It was just how it was. And I was part of the family and I participated and it was great. And as a teenager, when I was 13, we got new English neighbors, and they had a daughter that was 11 years old, and she was just as fascinated by us as we were by her. She was over all the time. My parents didn't like it, but they tolerated her. And we started going to her house on Sundays, and we brought them vegetables and baked goods and things. And I was like, wow, she's so cool. She has a bicycle. Her nails are painted. She's wearing shorts and like colorful t-shirts. And I just was noticing all of her fun things that she had. And even though I fantasized about having these things at that age, I was like, I can't do that because it's against the Amish beliefs, and I would go to hell if I did that. And I felt guilty for watching the TV or listening to the radio. And at 15, I started going to yard sales and getting English clothes. I went to the store and got English panties, and we would wear them to go to church. I would wear them, and my cousins would, and we always giggled and laughed. We thought we were so cool. And I snuck out with the English boys. I would go to their house, and we would watch porn and do other fun things. And I got caught one night, and that's when I was like, okay, I already knew that I wanted to run away, but I had no plan. Like I didn't know where I was going to go or what I was going to do, but I did think I was going to run away and get a job. That's what I wanted to know. I just didn't know when the time was right. But
Or
at 17,
what?
at 17, the opportunity finally presented itself.
Right. So you did you have like I'm hearing in your wording that maybe you didn't have a clear vision of what you wanted to do when you ran away. Did you have any dreams or desires, or was it just to get away?
I just wanted to get away. I knew that the non-Amish, the English people, like they had to have a job and go to work. They couldn't just get up and go to work on the farm. Like they had to go and do a job. I had no idea what I was going to do. I just wanted to leave and have a place to stay, which was a problem at the time. And I was going to get a job. That was my plan, but I don't
Right.
know.
And I realize now that me asking you at that age as an Amish person, what did you have dreams or visions of what you wanted to do? Because you were in a closed community, so you wouldn't really have understood what types of opportunities are out there. Am I right about that?
Absolutely right. I really didn't know. And I was very rebellious and very stubborn. And I just had this fire inside of me, like I needed, or like this urge, I had to get out of there because I knew there was like this great big world out there, but I didn't really honestly know much about it at all. I just knew I wanted more than to be Amish the rest of my life. And that was just all I could think about was to run away.
Hmm.
And finally, one morning, in July, I was picking strawberries, and this guy comes to the farm, Kevin.
Yeah,
He
we're going
used
to
to
talk
deliver lots
about
to
Kevin.
my dad's farm, and the light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, wow. I was like, maybe I could live with him. And I just blurted it out. I was like, I want to live with you, and I'm going to run away. And he's like, you're crazy. You can't do that. Your mom and dad will hate me. And I was like, well, such is life. I still want to run away.
Right.
And he told me he'd come back in a week. And he did. And he said I could live with his mom.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. I don't really like Kevin.
a lot of people don't like Kevin, including myself.
Right.
I mean, back in the day, I didn't realize it because I was young, naive, and vulnerable. And he took advantage of that. Like,
Right.
after I told him that I wanted to run away with him, he like looked around. He's like, well, come with me. And he took me to the barn and had me give him a blowjob right there in the horse stall. And I was like, ugh, I don't want to give too much away from the book, but
Totally. Yeah.
I couldn't believe that happened. And then a week after, he told me I could stay with his mom because she was old and she needed someone to help take care of her. And she had dialysis 3 times a week. A week after that, I was able to run away. And
From
I don't
Kevin.
know. No, run away from my home, from the
Oh,
Amish.
oh,
Yeah, I
gotcha.
ran away a week
Oh, a
after
week
he
after
gave
the
me where I could.
blowjob. Got
Yeah.
it.
So it happened like in steps.
Okay. Got it.
And I still planned on getting a job. I was like, when they finally picked me up, it was kind of a long story how my plan didn't go as I'd hoped, but I eventually was free and they picked me up at 11, around 11 the next morning. And I was like, oh, I need to get a job. And they're like, what? You need to be Amish, or you need to just be English and learn the ways of the English instead of just get a job right away.
Right.
So they said they would take care of me financially, which they did.
Right.
So that made me, it was a really hard spot to be in.
Yes. To be reliant on someone who's also, hold on a second. Mac, do you see that message? Okay. Yeah. So we ended at we were still talking. I have questions about Kevin and like how you dealt with Kevin. Kevin. Is it okay if I ask that?
Yeah. Of
My
course.
questions about Kevin is like, did you ever talk to him about what he did? Did you ever confront him? Did he ever apologize? Did he ever understand what he did was not chill, like and abusive? No.
No,
Okay.
he's never brought it up, but he has been trying to contact me recently. He's called me a couple times. He's reached out to me on Facebook, but
Oh.
I don't know. I just don't want to talk to him. Maybe I should.
No.
I don't know what I should do, but I just don't feel comfortable. I He was married through all this, so I didn't know that he had a son or that he was married when any of this happened before I left
Okay.
until the night when I was planning to run away. And even after I ran away, our sexual relationship continued. I didn't know how to say no to him, and I felt horrible because here's his wife she's so nice to me, like a mom. Like, she took me
Yeah.
in and like she was so awesome, and I felt so horrible about that. And I recently apologized to her
Mm.
because I knew she read the book, and I've been wanting to apologize all these years. I've been wanting to just call her and be like,
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. They're not married anymore. And she's like, I always knew anyway because of how you guys acted. And she's like, I forgive you. And she's like, he was my husband. He should have known better.
Yeah, I mean, you were essentially a child.
And he was
And
33.
right. And first of all, I'm so sorry that that happened to you. That should not
Thank
have
you.
happened to you. But yeah, not only were you a child, you were like more of a child than the English friends that you have at your same age, just because you were never exposed to these things. And that's why I don't like Kevin at all. Because you're right. He should have known better. And I think it's very admirable that you apologize to his wife. But how my brain works is you had nothing to apologize for, and you were taken advantage of. So I hope that she also could find it in her heart to apologize to you, because if she knew, then she was complicit, right?
Yeah. But I don't know. She's really awesome. But I hear you. I totally understand what you're saying. And I don't
Yeah,
know how she would have gone about it, but I do understand 100% what you're saying
yeah,
because
and
she suspected it. She highly suspected it because of how we acted
yeah,
around each other.
yeah. And I think that particular story, and then some of the other, your the whole book basically is you like figuring out this life and these things as they're happening to you. And I think that that's what I found so fascinating, is there are these situations that you were in that I was like, I wish that you had a guide with you, and you're also like the courage and the bravery that you exhibit just from running away, and then like you're just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna figure it out as I go. Like it's extremely brave.
Thank you. And I feel like that because he was grooming me and did take advantage of me, I feel like that kind of set the stage for me for so many years because as you found out throughout the book, like that was like, in my relationships, I lied and cheated and all these things. And I don't know. I feel like I was kind of set up for that. I didn't know how to navigate. And I know that makes me wrong. I should have known better not to cheat on my partners and things. Like it's
How
horrible.
how would you have known? I guess that would be something in your Amish culture that would be frowned upon as well,
No, it
right?
would be, yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
hmm But I mean, at the same time, I get that you did, and we're going to actually talk about that part a little towards the end when you read a part of the book. But I get like feeling bad about cheating, but at the same time, like you were just trying to live your life and learn things. So for me, there's like no judgment at all, anything
Thank
that you
you.
did. Yeah, because you're just, like we said, figuring it out. And
It really was.
yeah,
I was like, I don't know. I now I'm glad to be where I am, and I've
yeah,
learned a lot through. It's almost been 27 years since I left, so
yeah.
I got a
Wow.
lot of
Well,
challenges to overcome, and I've
yeah,
really
still, I'm
acknowledged it.
sure it'll be a lifelong process, I'm
Of
sure.
course.
So just a little confession on my end, just to maybe make you feel a little bit better. When I was young, I was like from 17 till about 20 years old, I was like actively trying to steal other people's boyfriends just to see if I could.
It's fine.
I'm not proud of that. It is embarrassing, but I say that to say, we all do crazy stuff, and it's just to figure life out, I guess. So don't feel so bad, is my point.
Of course,
I don't
and
do that anymore, by the way. I stopped doing that a long time ago. It's very uncool. But yeah, just to kind of,
awesome.
solidarity. We've all
Right.
been there.
We gotta
Well,
figure it out, right? Along the way, we
exactly.
figure it out. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. So, did you know, like, before you left, before you ran away, did you know about strippers and sex workers and like full service sex work? Were you aware that that was happening in the English world?
I don't I did hear about strip clubs because there were a couple Amish guys that would go to this strip club in my town, and it was very frowned upon. And I just thought that strippers were like the most horrible, bad people because they were taking their clothes off. And I
Right.
was still in the Amish mindset of, you can't do things like that and show off your body. And sex workers, I had no idea that that even existed, and I did used to watch porn when I would sneak out with the English boys, so I didn't know about porn and the strippers, but not full service sex work. Absolutely not.
Okay.
And
Okay. And
actually, after I left, Kevin's neighbor would come over, and Kevin kind of pimped me out to him. I didn't even know that that's what was happening because I
mm,
didn't know about sex work and stuff. But this guy would often give me $20. He's like, you need to make your own money. He's like, Kevin and his wife are too controlling. But other
mm,
than that, I didn't know.
I see. I see. And now you obviously do know, and strippers are some of the most amazing people on the planet,
Exactly.
right?
Yes, I have
Yeah.
some of my best friends are strippers. And
Yeah.
I definitely, I know when I started dancing, I couldn't believe that I was a dancer. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm one of these girls now. Like I'm one of these pet people. Like I
Yeah.
don't even know why I thought that. I just probably my background and the way I
Oh,
grew
I'm
up.
sure. I'm sure. And that, that's just conditioning that happened
Right.
to you from a young person and you broke out of that conditioning. So kudos to you because that's really hard for some people to do.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm sure you've accumulated a lot of friends over time because you're traveling for stripping was a lot. You were all over the country. Can we talk about some of those places? What were your favorite places? What were some cities and clubs that you worked at?
My first place that I ever danced was in Minnesota. So after I left, I got a boyfriend eventually, and I moved to Minnesota when I was 18, and I started dancing at 19. And I danced at that club for that was in Cannon Falls, Minnesota for 4 months, and then I moved back to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and there I danced at a club called Sensations, and it was very conservative. Like we couldn't even do lap dances. We had to wear nylons and like pin them and roll them on with our underwear, with our thongs,
How odd.
and it was very conservative. But I used to enjoy working there, and I did pretty well. And then there was another club I worked at briefly in Grand Rapids called the Red Barn that was totally nude. And then I moved to Las Vegas, and I
Yes.
don't know, like the thought of when I was thinking about it, going to Las Vegas and being a stripper was so overwhelming. And I had some friends that are like, oh, you could probably never do that. Like, that's crazy. Like, your skin's not thick enough to do that. And I was like, oh, I'm going to prove them wrong. I can do this. And the first club I worked at was Swim and Rhino. And there
Hmm.
used to be so many girls.
I know.
And I was still like, I don't know, my skin, I guess, was not that thick, not that it is now, but I was still like pretty naive about certain things. I don't know. I had a lot of fun there, but I didn't make that much money. I felt like I wasn't, like, there was so many girls and they would just go and get the guys. And I felt like I didn't get a lot of chances to dance for the guys. And
Hmm.
then I went to Cheetahs, and I love Cheetahs. Like, that was really, really cool. I worked there from 2004 until, gosh, the last time I danced, I was in 2018,
Wow.
2018.
Oh, wow. So you kind of
So,
went back and
and
like on and
yeah,
off at
yeah,
Cheetahs. Okay.
because I did move to California in 2011, and then I would drive back and forth every couple months
Right. So
to
did I. So you were at Spearmint Rhino in what year? 2003, would you say?
2004.
2004.
I moved there, and I was only there for like a couple, maybe 3 to 4 months at the most.
We were there at the same time. We were definitely on the roster at the same time because I started in Vegas in 2003 and I
Okay.
stayed there for like 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
So we were definitely there. And as far as how many dancers were on shift at any given night, when I first started in 2003, there were 200 dancers on shift at night. And I was like, oh, it's kind of a lot, but this building is really big, blah, blah, blah. And then like a year later, there were 300 dancers on at a
Yes.
night. And I was like,
People
this
don't
is,
believe me when I say
yeah.
that. Like, they don't believe me that there were 300 girls. I'm like, yes, there would be 300 or more girls on the weekends. It was,
Yeah. And
wow.
then another year went by, and this is when I quit. There were 400
Gosh, I can't even
on
imagine.
the roster. And then I was like, peace out. And I went to Sapphire. So you went to Cheetahs, which I bet
And
was more fun, probably.
it was more like, it was like more like the kind of, it was more like a community where like there was the house mom, like, was so nice, and the girls, like, I felt like I had a new family.
Hmm.
And at Swim and Rhino, it was just so rush, and everyone was just there. Like, and I know we're there to make money and do what we do, but at Cheetahs, I actually like made friends, and it was great. I had my little Vegas family, and then I also worked at Treasures for a little bit, and
Okay.
that club was really, really cool. It was really big, and they would have a buffet, and I was like, "There's food at the strip club. That's kind of interesting," but it
Yeah.
was fun. There was another one, the Leopard Lounge, I think it was called, for a little bit. I
I've
worked there
not heard
for
of them.
briefly too. It changed
Okay.
names a lot,
Okay. Yeah.
and then my
Treasures wouldn't
other,
hire me.
oh,
I don't know.
interesting.
I don't
I
know.
didn't like the pole. It was too short and not
Yeah.
like, I liked long poles, so I could do pole tricks. But it was
Yes.
I had fun there though. It was super fun.
I love it. Yeah, and you used to party at Dre's, like after hours at Dre's too in Vegas.
Yes,
Yeah,
my
so
ex
did
and
I.
I, we
Yeah.
would go out and party and go out on the strip to Towel, and then we would go to Dre's often
Yeah,
afterwards.
same. I would do the same. I swear we've been in the same room at the
I
same
know,
time
it's
in the
crazy.
past. It's
You like
crazy.
kind of look familiar to me. Like I know I saw you, like we had a phone call, but like you kind of look familiar. It's interesting. I don't know if that's just me thinking that, or if we actually, like, if I remember seeing you. I don't
I don't know.
really.
I mean, it would have been like 20 years ago,
I know, a
unless
long
you've
time
been,
ago.
yeah, or unless you've been to a Spearmint Rhino and saw like my pictures on the wall, because that's a thing. There's
Maybe
my,
it's a possibility.
yeah, yeah, or I don't know, maybe I'm just famous and I
Are
don't
you
know about
famous?
it. I'm just
Then I also
kidding.
danced in Phoenix at a club, Sugar 44. I really like that place. That was really fun. I danced there for, gosh, from 2018 to 2020.
Okay,
Um, I used to like dancing there, and that's the last club I danced at was Sugar 44.
2020.
Hmm.
Yeah,
During the pandemic, and then I got pregnant, and I didn't want to dance during my pregnancy, so that's why I
yeah.
haven't danced.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's okay. And some people do dance during their pregnancy. I think that's
Oh,
definitely like a
absolutely.
personal choice. Yeah,
Of course, to
I,
each their own. There was a girl
exactly.
dancing. She was like 7 months pregnant when I started working there.
I
And I
think you
was like,
mentioned her in your book, don't you?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you do.
I was
Yeah.
like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I
And I
used to
feel
work
like,
with a pregnant dancer too, back in Blue Zebra in North Hollywood.
wow. And
Yeah.
you used to, if it's okay, you used to work at Jumbo's too, right?
Yeah, I worked at Jumbo's Clown Room in Hollywood for 11 years.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I loved going there when I lived in
Yeah.
LA. It was so
Yeah,
fun.
so you
Uh,
probably saw me dancing at Jumbo's Clown Room, and that's why you recognized
that's
me.
possibly why, yeah.
Yeah, because what years were you going?
I was in California from 2011 until 2017.
Yeah, so okay.
So throughout
Mhm.
those years, I
All
would go
those
there.
years I was at Jumbo's through all of those years. So
That's amazing.
100% you and I have been in the same room on multiple occasions throughout the last 20 years.
That's
That's kind of weird.
that's kind of weird, and here we are. It's pretty great.
Totally.
Okay,
I love it. Oh my
me too.
God. Yes, it's true. We made a stripper store for your slutty lifestyle, so go and shop the core. But wait, there's more. Pole dancers, listen up. You've learned from hosts, support their growth by shopping here with us. Stripper fans, all you daddies, you can shop here too. Where these threads and solidarity get stuff for your boo.
It's a stripper store made with strippers in mind. Profit share with all the babes to supplement the grind. It's a stripper store made with strippers in mind. Profit share with all the babes to supplement the grind.
Shop with us at YASAstripper.com to purchase items that directly support the podcast, our guests, and 10% of profits to a stripper or sex worker charity. YASAstripper.com. You talk about your Amish life on your social media a lot, and oftentimes you're wearing your bonnet and talking about your Amish life. What's it like being an I don't want to say ex-Amish. I don't know if you have a word for it
I'm
that's
ex-Amish.
okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
just want to make sure I'm being
Ex-Amish. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
respectful.
Yeah, of
So
course, I'm ex-Amish.
what's that like presenting as ex-Amish online, and do other Amish people reach out to you, and like what's their vibe with you?
Being ex-Amish online, actually, I feel like it's empowering because I feel like there's so much that the outside world doesn't know about the Amish, and I feel like I can kind of be that voice. I don't
Mm.
know that they need a voice, but I feel like, I don't know, it makes me feel good to share about my
Yeah.
life, so that way people have a better perspective of the Amish. And then some ex-Amish do reach out to me, and I've honestly, it's been very positive, except there was one girl on my Instagram that made like kind of rude comments on one of my videos, but that's it's what it is. Other than that, it's been all very positive, and I'm appreciative and of um the people and on social media and the
Yeah.
outreach. Like I get lots of good messages and inspiring messages as well. So
That's
People
awesome.
always say that they are very intrigued and grateful that I'm sharing my story.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's important for people to understand people who live in these conservative communities because, as you know, and I mentioned to you, we've interviewed more than one person who has left a conservative religion and then turned out to be a stripper and or sex worker. And it's almost like, because you had said there was like this hunger inside of me, this, thing that I needed to release. And that's actually common that I've heard in these interviews with other people who leave behind a sort of conservative life and religion. And for me, the way I interpret that is that you were being oppressed so deeply, and but there's some personalities that just like innately, like by nature, you're just fighting against the oppression from within, that you have to
Absolutely.
break free because your other family members, the female family members, were in the same situation as you, but they didn't have that same like hunger and desire to like release this inner feeling, right?
Right.
So I think it's important for people to understand that like not all of us are like that, but the ones of us that are, like, don't clip wings, right? Because we will
Right.
find a way.
Exactly. Like I overcame that. I just wanted to be out here, and I'm grateful to be here and like be able to share my story.
Yeah.
And when I left, I never thought I'd be here doing what I'm doing, but I'm I like it. It's great.
Yeah, you've created quite a life for yourself. It's very
Thank you.
inspiring, and I'm sure to other people who may also feel trapped. I think that's another good reason to share because there are other people that want to find their freedom like you did.
And
It's really
also
cool.
writing my book, that I was able to, it was like therapy for me. And it was very hard to write about a lot of parts, but through the process, I was able to release and let go of a lot of
Mm,
trauma and things that I had just been shoving down for years and years, and that I didn't even
yeah.
realize I was shoving down and not dealing with. And writing the book really helped me
Yeah.
to deal with a lot of things that I was dealing with.
Yeah. So speaking of writing the book, can we read a part of the book on
Sure.
air? Okay. Do
Absolutely.
you remember what section?
It is 133, chapter
Yes.
11.
Yes, yes. I'm going to read
All
along with
right.
you.
I will read this. I met Leo during the summer of 2005 at Cheetos. I never crushed so hard on a client. He was a sexy firefighter who looked like a model with neatly trimmed dark hair, dark eyes, high cheekbones, and a chiseled jawline, and a six pack abs. I felt crazy butterflies every time he walked into the club. He was so charismatic, playful, naughty, and oh so sexy. He tugged on my hand as I walked by. Have a shot of Patron with me. No way, I said, but didn't pull away. I don't drink while I'm working. Oh, come on, one shot won't hurt you. He kept bugging me about it, so I gave in. After one shot, I was drunk and gave him some dances. Leo looked hungrily into my bra. Have dinner with me at the Artisan tonight. I turned away from him, then leaned back to whisper in his ear, I can't. He wouldn't quit asking and ordered me another shot. He was so sexy when he teased me. I loved it. I sat on his lap, letting my long hair hide our faces as he kissed me. It was against club rules to make out with customers. Come to dinner with me, he whispered in my ear. No one will find out, but I didn't want to hurt Lance again, and if he found out, he would definitely break up with me. Eventually, though, I decided to have dinner with Leo. I told him I couldn't stay out late, and he said not to worry. We met at the Artisan and sat in a corner booth of the empty restaurant drinking wine. We couldn't stop kissing and touching each other, and while waiting for our food, he took off my shorts under the table. Lucky for him, I wasn't wearing panties. Leo slid beneath the table and crawled between my legs. He grabbed onto my inner thighs and helped himself to my waiting appetizer. I bit down on my lower lip, trying to maintain my composure as Leo's mouth made me tremble. The poor waiter knew what we were doing, but didn't say anything. When our food came, we barely ate because we couldn't keep our hands off each other. That was the longest time I've ever spent at a restaurant. Suddenly, I thought of Lance. It was after 10 o'clock, and I hadn't called him. I told Leo I had to go home immediately, but he begged me to come to his truck. I agreed while warning him that I had to go soon. We kissed, and he went down on me again, melting my resolve to leave. I felt like a rebel being so naughty in his truck. At 11:30, I insisted I had to go, and he walked me to my car. I hoped he'd offer me his number, but he didn't. My emotions were all over the place. How was I going to explain this to Lance? There was no way he'd believe anything I said. I couldn't blame him. I was getting more upset by the minute. On the drive home, I came up with a story and repeated it out loud, hoping Lance would believe it. At midnight, I walked into our condo. Lance stood there fuming with our roommate, Mitch, close behind. Are you okay? Lance asked. I was worried sick. I called the club and they said you left at 6. Holy cow, I thought. He called the club. I was busted. My heart sank to my stomach. We even called the jails and hospitals to see if you got a DUI or were in an accident, Mitch added. I went to eat with a friend, I said, and went into the bedroom. Lance followed me. He was furious and rightfully so. Tell me exactly what happened, he demanded. I had dinner at the Artisan with Leo. Oh boy, that was the wrong thing to say. Lance got even angrier. I don't believe you, he yelled. You're a whore. I know you had sex with him. It didn't matter how much I tried to deny it. He didn't believe me. We argued for weeks. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to tell Lance the truth. Knowing he wouldn't believe me anyway, I had nothing to lose. I left out the details about what happened during dinner, but I did tell him what happened in the truck. It took a while for him to calm down, but he believed me. I was disgusted with myself and the choices I'd made. Part of me wanted to be free of Lance, but I craved the security of the relationship. I was veering off course again and scared to be alone. I felt torn between two worlds. Other dancers were seeing clients outside the club and buying cars and houses. I wanted those things too. All the temptations Vegas had to offer were right there in front of me. I also wanted to be grounded with Lance. I loved being naughty, and being with Lance kept me from going wild, and so I stayed. But our relationship was never the same after that. I kept thinking about Leo. Days turned into weeks, and he hadn't come into the club since our naughty night. Then one day, a waitress named Chloe marched into the dressing room with a big grin. Oh my God, Risa, guess who's here? I knew right away who it was. Is it Leo? Yes, it's him. He and his buddies showed up and asked if you were here. Tell them I'll be out soon. I trembled as I finished putting on my makeup, and it took me forever. I wondered if he still liked me. What would I say? Would I make a fool of myself? Maybe he didn't want me the same way I wanted him. So many thoughts bubbled through my head. Throwing my shoulders back and my head up, I walked onto the floor. Leo noticed me and smiled. As I got close, he pulled me onto his lap. So nice to see you, little hottie. He handed me a shot of Patron. We talked and laughed, and I danced for him. What happened when you got home after I saw you? Leo asked. I told Lance what you and I did and got in big trouble. He smiled. I'm sorry for getting you into trouble. It was worth it, I assured him. Sorry, I made my eye water. I'm not crying because I'm
Okay.
sad. There. My goodness, that brought back memories.
Did it really?
I'm like, oh, Leo.
So, Lance, I didn't like any of your boyfriends until the last one.
That's probably why I'm not with any of those until the last one.
Yeah. I mean, all of these men that you dated while you were in your career, they knew they knew your job. You were
They knew I was a stripper, but they didn't know that I was a sex worker.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I just never had the heart to tell them.
Okay.
And I know that was wrong, very wrong, and misleading on my end. And Lance, I know, and it's wrong. I justified it with Lance because he often would get a job, and then he just wouldn't hold a job. He would find a reason to quit or to get fired, and then I was stuck supporting the both of us. Like, he wouldn't even clean the apartment, and I would get so upset. Like, he would just smoke weed all day, and which I was paying for. I don't know. It was just,
Exactly.
so I would justify it because he wouldn't work.
Right.
And I know I should have still told him, but I didn't. So
Well, sure, for safety reasons and, health reasons and things
health,
like that,
exactly.
it's
Absolutely.
important. Yeah, but we all fuck up, and your
100%.
situation is just really unique, and you, like you said, you were taking care of a lot of people during your career, and so you got to do what you got to do. But I think that not being able to talk to your partners is due to whorephobia on everyone's part, society, your partner, probably even yourself. I had whorephobia even as a stripper and sex worker in my younger years, and I grew out of that. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, what is
You're
the word you're
tilting your
saying?
head. Whorephobia,
What does that mean? I don't
a
even know.
fear of whores,
Oh, okay.
or a fear of being a whore, or a fear of
Oh,
being close to a whore. It's a loathing and a fear. Usually a loathing comes from fear of being a whore, basically.
right. I was so embarrassed about it. And I
Right.
didn't want anyone to know, honestly. Like, I really didn't want people to know that about me.
Right. Because of whorephobia. And you
Right.
probably, as you just are learning the word now, you probably have some understanding of at least of what whorephobia is and how
Oh no,
like
I totally, now
stigma,
it makes
right?
complete
Yeah.
sense. I've never heard that word before, but it makes
Hmm.
complete sense. That's exactly what I was so scared of, that, or of what people would think of me if they knew.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we're mentioning, we've already talked about, in a world where you're like learning everything as you go, it's harder to just have access to information like that when you were trying to survive most of the time. So listen, like I said, no judgment here
Thank you.
whatsoever, but it is good to reflect and look back on the ways that we could improve as we move forward in life. So
100%.
definitely appreciate that.
And
Yeah.
I've had to let that go and forgive myself, and him
Yeah.
too, obviously. He's actually been showing up in my dreams and like haunting me in my dreams, and I don't
Oh
like it. But
God, like Freddy Krueger, but like not as
like
crazy.
he won't leave, and he's like trying
Oh,
to like harm my daughter. Like, it's
oh, I'm
bad.
so
And I'm like,
sorry.
so I'm trying to do some breath work and like
Yeah.
to release that energy. Maybe it's stored energy that I haven't let go of, or maybe I haven't fully forgiven him for all the
Yeah.
things that he, like, when he, yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to work through. Um, yeah. And thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably today with us. I
Of
understand this is a
course.
lot of heavy stuff. So really do appreciate, want to make sure we hold space for you and,
Thank you.
yeah. Um, So when we spoke before this podcast, we talked about some of your other media encounters. Um, is it okay to talk about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, of
Hmm.
course.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So they kind of took advantage or tried to exploit you, use you as clickbait, maybe?
That's what I felt like. Jesse
Okay.
Waters on prime time. So a guy reached out to me. He's like, "We would love to have you on the show." And I didn't even know who Jesse Waters was. I know about Fox News, but
Hmm.
he's like, "We'll give you a plug for your book." And I was like, "Sure, this is super exciting." And then the time came to interview. They came to send a cameraman to the house, and I had my book right there. But he just asked me about the Amish, and then how I became a stripper, and he made it sound like strippers are, it's such a dark path to be a stripper. And he didn't even like ask about my book or give me a chance to talk about my book. And I felt like they just exploited me. And like, it was kind of a blow to strippers, I felt like.
Hmm.
And I don't know.
Hmm.
I just, maybe I wasn't prepared properly. Maybe I should have just blurted it out at some point. But afterwards, I asked the contact why he didn't ask about the book, and he's like, "Oh, it's tricky because it's not a Fox News book." He talked about his book before. He could have totally like worked
That's
that in.
bullshit.
when he was starting to introduce me, because he was talking about his book and then he went into, I don't know, it was kind
That
of
was
difficult
absolute
because I felt
bullshit.
exploited.
Didn't they ask you to come on the show because of your book?
Yes, they
Yes.
asked me to come on the show because of my book. That's what they told me. And then they like didn't ask about it and didn't really like give me a chance to talk about it. That's why I'm like, I should have just, I looking back, I see where I could have been like, oh, in my book, and I should have just brought it up. But I thought they would ask me about it, but he didn't. So
Yeah, I mean, I can't even tell you. There's been like at least 2 times that I was bamboozled by the media. Um, and even as a person who was like familiar with media, so it's really easy to get tricked by them, especially if they seem really friendly and accommodating at first, which is part of their game. um, and not to say, and I just kind of want to preface this to the audience, that us talking about the media working with sex workers and strippers, it's not all of them. It's just a lot. But I've worked with plenty of journalists that are very respectful and have learned how to treat sex workers in their journalism. So if you're a journalist listening to this and you're one of those people, great. But a lot of you need a lesson in how to treat sex workers because it is deplorable. And like you said, it was a blow to strippers because here you are as a stripper representing strippers, and they're using you as like this avenue to put strippers down. And then that puts like this weight on you that you never even saw
like I
coming.
wasn't intending, right, exactly. I didn't even see it coming. And I just also want to add, I've worked with plenty of media and journals, um, newspaper, what is it called? Journalism? I don't know.
Journalists, yeah.
Journalists, thank you.
Yeah.
I've worked with plenty of journalists that were very respectful. And I understand, like, being a stripper and a sex worker, like, everyone's not that open-minded to it right yet. And it's kind of, especially for conservative people, that's like a hard subject to talk about. So I
Right.
do realize that, but I mean, I feel like it is part of life for some of us. I know that it is part of life for some of us, and it doesn't mean that we're bad people. Like, I
Right.
have a family, and it was in my past, and it's a stigma, I feel like, that
Yes.
people don't understand.
Yes,
So
absolutely. Yes. Well, you're not alone in the getting bamboozled by media. Um, and, I wanted us to talk about this for those strippers and sex workers that have not ever talked to the media and who may be approached someday in the future. And, to be cautious, ask a lot of questions, um, and to like take your time in your responses. Because for me, one of the ways that I got kind of tricked into answering a question that I thought was horrible was I didn't take the time to think about my answer. I just answered quickly and I didn't give the response that I wanted. And so my advice to anybody would be to just like slow down and take a beat and make them wait. If they ask a question that feels funny, just be like, and then respond from there. Does that make sense?
I 100% agree with that. And I feel like if I would have slowed down, because I felt like it all just was like so rushed and happened all so
Yeah.
fast. And I feel like if I would have just taken a moment and really thought about what I was saying, I could have worked it in, even though he didn't ask me. And that was like, I could have answered better if I would have slowed down and taken my time.
Yeah,
100%.
and the only way we know is by going in and making mistakes and figuring it out. And because we don't have like PR agents walking around with us telling us how to do it, like no one went to school for that, or some people
Exactly.
did, but
Right.
most of us didn't.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
hopefully someone can, sex workers or strippers, if they ever get approached or have interviews, can learn from my mistake and, like you said, maybe even yours. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's make sure everyone remembers the title of your book and how to find your book and how to follow you and all the things, because everyone should be buying and reading this book. It is so good.
The Amazing Adventures of an Amish Stripper, an erotic memoir. It's available on Amazon, and they can also find me at Amish Inspiration on TikTok and Instagram, both of those. And eventually I would like to do YouTube, but for now I don't have YouTube. I'm staying busy with Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah, and you have a really good following, especially on TikTok. You have a large following.
We're I think 202,000 followers and 26,000 on Instagram.
So. Amazing. Yeah. Very cool.
Thank you.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add or any messages for the audience or anyone out there before we close?
I just want to say that I am grateful to be where I am in my life, and the stripper part, the Amish part, and now I'm an author and a mom, and being a mom is definitely the most challenging but the most rewarding and my favorite chapter in my life. And I'm just so grateful that I never gave up, and I finally found the peace and the freedom that I was searching for when I left my Amish family. And if you are going through challenges and difficult times, just seek support and don't give up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Naomi, for sharing your story and your time with us. I'm just honored to be with you and to have met you. And I'm so happy that our audience got to learn more about you today, because you are talking to a large stripper audience on this show. And I'm sure that love and support is just coming out of them while they're listening to us talk. So
awesome. Well, thank you for having me. It was really fun and very nice to meet you, and
lovely to meet you.
We will be in touch, and I'll see you again.
We'll definitely be in touch.
Awesome.
All right, everyone. As always, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
And that's on Period Network.